Hi everyone, this is Stan. I'm a YouTuber from Poland who used to live in Taiwan for 9 years and now making videos on Asian politics. Today, let's discuss the news that are related to the last days of the current US administration and their policies in support of Taiwan, Hong Kong, and democracy in Asia. Earlier this month, Hong Kong police arrested 53 democracy activists, making it the biggest crackdown on dissent since national security law got passed for Hong Kong by Beijing. Just to remind you, this summer Beijing government adopted a national security law for Hong Kong, not letting Hong Kong people say anything. The law was not passed by the Hong Kong Legislative Council. It was introduced directly by China's National People's Congress. So, this law officially ended the self-governance of Hong Kong and showed the world that China would never follow with their promises and obligations given internationally, such as a promise of 50 years without changes and high autonomy for Hong Kong. This law made it possible for the Chinese authorities to try the violators in mainland China, granted the Hong Kong chief executive the right to appoint judges that would hear the national security cases, meaning that executive branch is getting control over judiciary. And now Beijing even has the power over how this law should be interpreted. National security trials can be heard behind closed doors, and this draconian law applies not only to citizens and permanent residents of Hong Kong, but even foreigners, and even the people who don't reside in Hong Kong. And since this law passed, the massive crackdowns started in Hong Kong, with the latest one being the biggest. Among those detained, there was an American lawyer, John Clancy. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called the arrests an outrage and a reminder of the Chinese Communist Party's contempt for its own people and the rule of law. He also added that the United States would consider sanctions and other restrictions on any and all individuals and entities involved in executing this assault on Hong Kong people. There is another piece of news that I wanted to share, a very important news for the Taiwanese people. Mike Pompeo announced that Kelly Craft, Washington's ambassador to the United Nations, would visit Taiwan, but her visit got cancelled last minute, as State Department announced. All planned travel will be cancelled this week, due to transition of the department to the President-elect Joe Biden's team. Taiwan's government expressed understanding and respect for the decision. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs regrets that the US ambassador to the United Nations Kelly Craft cannot lead a delegation to visit Taiwan, but welcomes Ambassador Craft to visit at an appropriate time in future, it said in a statement. Let's talk about Kelly Craft, who was supposed to visit Taiwan, and her planned trip. It was supposed to be a highly symbolic trip, as Taiwan is not currently a UN member, but it shares all the key values of the organization. And the only obstacle that is preventing Taiwan from entering the United Nations is the aggression of the Chinese Communist Party. Last year, Ambassador Kelly Craft had lunch with Taiwan's top official James K.J. Lee in New York, which was the first meeting between a Taiwanese top official and the US ambassador to the United Nations. She is known as a strong supporter of Taiwan and has been advocating for this nation to join the UN, saying that it was cheating the world not letting Taiwan participate in UN's activities. This visit could have broadened the relationship between the two countries and could be a further assurance that the US is advocating for Taiwan's inclusion in international organizations, as well as promotion of universal values and human rights in Asia. Still, the US ambassador to the United Nations is welcome to visit Taiwan next time. It probably is also a good gesture to the upcoming US administration. As Antony Blinken, the next Secretary of State, said, the Biden-Harris administration will stand with the people of Hong Kong and against Beijing's crackdown on democracy. Now there are many activists from Hong Kong that came to Taiwan. Probably the new administration could consider an official visit to the island nation, during which the discussions could be held with Hong Kongers that currently reside in Taiwan. The new administration should show the world that the United States will always stand with Taiwan and will always protect Taiwan from any possible aggression. I hope that the world's democracies would also follow and broaden their relationships with Taiwan. And of course, the aggressive reaction from China followed immediately. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying, a person who is infamous for the rude comments and ignorance, said that Pompeo's comments represented a serious interference in China's internal affairs. China will take all necessary steps to resolutely safeguard its sovereignty and security interests. The United States must pay a heavy price for its mistakes. Again, threats, threats and threats. The world knows how baseless these claims are. The CCP never ruled Taiwan, not for a day, not for a single minute. Taiwan is an independent country with its own democratically elected government, legal system, army, currency or representative offices all around the world, and the people that identify themselves as Taiwanese. The biggest problem that Taiwan currently faces is the CCP's bullying. And finally, the US became more vocal in its support of this East Asian democratic country. Another piece of news that I wanted to share is that the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo also lifted the restrictions on contacts between the US officials and their Taiwanese counterparts, highlighting that Taiwan is a vibrant democracy and a reliable partner of the United States. State Department has created complex internal restrictions to regulate the diplomats, service members, and the other officials' interactions with their Taiwanese counterparts. The United States government took those actions unilaterally in an attempt to appease to the communist regime in Beijing. So, from now on, executive branch agencies won't have to use any of the contact guidelines that have been issued before, making it even more convenient to have direct contacts with the Taiwanese officials. Decades of discrimination removed, Taiwan's ambassador to the United States, Bi-khim said on her Twitter. A huge day in our bilateral relationship. I will cherish every opportunity. Taiwan's Minister of Foreign Affairs Joseph Wu also thanked Secretary Pompeo. The closer partnership between Taiwan and the US is firmly based on our shared values, common interests, and unshakable belief in freedom and democracy. Those guidelines were initiated in 1978, when the US broke relations with the nationalist Chinese government, as it was still claiming sovereignty over China. But now, Taiwan is a democracy, and it's not fair to use those guidelines in dealing with the democratic partner, who is faced by an aggressive neighbor that's constantly threatening to take this country by force. So I hope we'll see more contacts between those two countries in future. And I also hope that all the countries with similar values would unite in support of Taiwan, especially during these times when China's aggressive behavior is becoming harder to contain. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please press like, subscribe, and share. This is Stan, and I see you in the next one.